I'm so glad y'all are here. Thank you for joining us. Before we finish up with this last painting, I wanted to share with y'all a couple things. First of all, I'm going to be putting together a little slideshow that features all of your amazing artwork from the past 6 weeks. And if you would like your piece to be featured in the slideshow, and this slideshow is going to be on Facebook, and it's going to be on maybe on our Heinemann Settlement School Facebook website. So we want to show y'all off. I want everybody to see how much fun we've been having and how talented y'all are. And if you would like your a couple pictures of what you've done, if you want to send some pictures of your whole family painting together, some group pictures would be lovely. If you want to be featured in our slideshow, you can email me pictures, or you can also post them in the Facebook group that we made, or you can text them to me. All those are options. I put them in the email, and I'll put them here in the chat in a second. So I would love to get lots of pictures from y'all, and so we can highlight all the amazing stuff you've been doing. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us. And Miss Melissa, take it away.
Hey guys, I am so happy to see you all this week, and I'm kind of sad it's our last night together. And I just want to brag on all you guys that everyone has done such a good job on this artwork, and especially proud of those of you who have, done some little extra stuff on the side and just played around with it and had some fun with the medium. And I'm really happy about that, and hope that you've enjoyed this as much as I have. So tonight, I had so much fun painting this little painting. We're going to do the sunflower, so I hope you've already got it sketched and ready to go. And if you notice, like, my sketch wasn't very detailed, because it doesn't have to be. In this particular painting, and if you look at my example, like, it's drippy, it's out of the lines, it's a bunch of colors together. So I've got the two little sunflowers, and not necessarily traditional sunflower colors in there, and of course a little bee. And I was going to tell you the story. Of course, my last name is Brashear, and hold on just a second. I'm getting a call. Okay. So my students call me Miss B, and my name Melissa means honeybee in Greek. So I'm Miss B, and that's my kind of alter ego, and people send me bee stuff all the time. So I thought it'd be cute if we added a little bee on our sunflower painting tonight. You can't remember me by just kidding, but I had fun painting this, and it's, of all the paintings we've done, I think this one is probably the most stress-free and kind of carefree and expressive one that we've done. So there's no way to do this wrong, and there's no way to mess it up. So that makes it even more fun to me. And what I want to talk to you about a little bit in the beginning is about color, and we're going to do, like, I wanted you to pay attention a little bit to color choices and the science. There's a little science behind that, and I know you guys will probably know what a color wheel is. Some of you may not, but I was going to do a little mini lesson on color before we paint, because this does not take very long. This painting doesn't, but this is a color wheel. Now you can see it. Okay, so there's all kinds of little categories of color schemes, and one of them that we use in art is called complementary colors. And complements are colors that are across from each other on this color wheel. I keep trying to find the camera. Here we go. Okay. So if you look and see the yellow there at the top, the opposite, or its complement, is purple. I'm trying to go backwards because I have to do the opposite. And if you look at orange, then its complement is blue. And depending on if it's a red orange or a yellow orange, then it's like a blue or a blue green. But anyways, if you're ever in doubt of a color scheme, especially like even in something in your home, or if you're trying to put together an outfit, if you use those colors that are opposite of each other, they intensify one another. And, if you give someone a compliment, you say something nice about them. So complementary colors are really nice to each other. And the Impressionist artists like Vincent van Gogh, they were masterful at using those colors. So we're playing around with complementary colors today on these sunflowers. And so we've got some oranges and some blues, and we've got some yellows and some purples in here. So it's kind of fun. And so I just want to do a little mini lesson on that. But if you ever seriously look into color theory a little bit, it's not as scientific and boring as it sounds. Like, I love to teach about it, and I always do a unit where I talk about how color affects your moods and colors that you should paint in your house, to make you feel one way or the other, and how color is used in advertising. We get into all that stuff. So I get on a tangent when I talk about color because I enjoy it so much. But let's go ahead and get started on our sunflower painting tonight. So I've got my water and I've got my sketch here. I've got my paper towels and all that. So I'm going to start, and we're going to start by, I'm actually going to paint a little background color first, just around the petal shape. But I'm really, really, really using very little color. So you want to just kind of get a wet brush, and at this point, like, just kind of barely dirty the water. And I did it with a little bit of brown, just the slightest bit of brown on my brush. And I'll see if you can see where I'm at now. Okay. So I'm coming in behind these petals, and I mean, you just want to kind of tint the paper and put a little of that color down, and just kind of, how we put the water down first. So I'm just kind of putting a little bit of brown water. I mean, literally just a little bit. And spread it out and kind of wiggle your brush so you don't have any like brush strokey spots. Just kind of wiggle it around. And basically it's kind of just dirty water. It's not really, really dark. If you want to put a little more in it, see how I'm doing the puddle thing, the bleed, which is a really cool effect. I love doing that. So you can do that if you want to make the brown come out a little stronger. And if it's too dark, then all you got to do is put your brush back in the water and kind of, wiggle your brush out through here so we don't have any edges. You want it to just kind of fade out. And if you wiggle, that will happen. So just in a little bit here. And actually, I think I ended up getting my brush in a little bit of blue also. But the blue on my palette is like really, really bright. So I'll just do a little of the bright blue and spread it around just a little bit around some of these petals too. So, and it can overlap the blue, the brown. If you want to have this just like foggy little background back there, you don't really want any images, just some color. And it can come out around your bead if you want, or up to it. And basically, if you want to put a different color, maybe you want some purples, and then I started putting a little green to mimic like the leaves. If there was a bunch of sunflowers here, so I'm gonna, as I come down through here, I'm gonna get into some green. Same way, just kind of dirty your water, and if it's too bright, which I think that kind of is, you just kind of spread it around, and let's bring it up into that blue a little. So we're kind of fading from brown to a little bit of blue and a little bit of green. And I'm not being precise. I'm just kind of being, just moving my brush around. If it gets on top of the petal shapes, that's fine. Because this is a very, very, very expressive painting. So I'm just going to and we're going to always come back in and do more in a minute when this dries, which is kind of the plan. But I am going to bring some green on around this way. Oops, I got really bright. But all we got to do is wet the brush. And I didn't pat it out to get the excess water out. So I'm wiggling. Wiggle, 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 yeah. I don't know what that song was. And I'm wiggling. And I'm going to add a little more water to make it fade out as it goes away. And just keep kind of spreading that green around as a background color. But we're going to have some white spots too. That's what we want. You don't want it to be all solid. You don't want it to be very dark. We're just pretending that that was some leaves. I'm going to do a little of the bleed thing. And you remember that I talked about when you want to make a color green look natural, if you mix it with a little brown. So I've got my little palette lid, and I've got a place on here where we made some more of a natural color green, almost a olivey green, by taking my bright green and I put it in there, and then I clean my brush, and I got some brown. So it's kind of a rule of thumb, if you're doing something from nature, some kind of landscape or flower or something like that that would have greens in it from nature, like always add a little brown. Like I didn't on this background thing, but that's okay because that we're just kind of being playful with. But I want to come back and kind of suggest some leaves here in a minute. But I'm going to put a little bit of our brownish green kind of in this corner. You won't see it. And I'm going to leave it puddly like that. I think it looks cool. So that's our background for the moment. And if you look on this one, you can see where I kind of came back back in, and I made some little areas to kind of mimic a leaf or something back there. So we're going to let that dry a bit because it's very puddly. So we're going to jump over now and start working on the centers of the sunflowers. And once again, this is where we're going to pre-wet that circle, and we're going to do that bleed method a lot in there. And I actually started off with blue. I'm going to switch to a little fatter brush. I still want a pointy brush. I don't know, I just prefer them. You guys, have you developed a favorite brush, like a love for a certain brush? But I'm using the fattest pointy brush we have, or round as they're called. So I'm going to wet the center of that. Make sure you guys can see. Wet the center of that sunflower, and I'm going to put some blue in there. But again, my blue is very bright. So we're going to start off with a lot of that pretty blue, and see, I love to do this. Just let it bleed and let it go wherever it wants to go, because it's only going to go where the water is. And we're going to do lots of layering of this in blues and purples and black and brown. And because that real sunflower is where the seed pods are, like the seeds, sunflower seeds. So that's where the seeds are. If you like to eat sunflower seeds, that's where they are in the center. So while that blue is kind of drying, well, we want to jump down. Yeah, we can jump down here and do the bottom flower. Same way. I'm going to do the same colors. I'm going to turn it sideways so you see it better. But this is the bottom flower. I'm just trying to get it where you can see. This document camera that I'm using is pretty cool, but it doesn't have a wide range, so it's hard for me to get everything in sometimes. I'm turning my paper around. So I'm just painting water on there. And I'm going to come in with that blue, just like I did the other one. A lot of water, and let it bleed. It gives that tie-dye look to it. And I'm just doing little dot, 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 because I'm almost trying to mimic seed shapes. You know, the little seeds are kind of teardrop shaped, right? Even though we're not drawing them or anything, but the layers, when they dry, you'll be able to see kind of shapes in there. So I'm just kind of patting that around. I hope that you guys continue to do watercolor, because I promise this is one of the most therapeutic things in the world. It is to me, and it's really helped me through sometimes when I'm really stressed or emotional. Like if I just kind of get lost in my painting, it kind of takes your mind off everything else. So I hope, if nothing else, that you guys have gotten a love for that. I like what's happening there, and that's one of those happy accidents. Okay, so I'm going back to my side flower, and let's bring some purple. Let's get some purple. Now, again, as we've done every painting, you guys have carte blanche to do whatever colors you want to do. If you want your, center of your sunflowers to be the traditional browns and blacks, go for it. I mean, there's no wrong answer, and these are abstract kind of flowers. So if you want to make them, like we've done before, like any kind of colors you want, that's the fun of it, right? So I'm doing the same thing where I'm just kind of patting in some purples. I want to kind of keep my purples around the edge a little, like a little row of seeds. But it doesn't, you don't have to do that. And if you go out of the lines, it's okay. It's kind of cool if you do. So we got purples mixing with blues. And same thing down here on the bottom one. Okay. I'm gonna wet my paint. I'm gonna wet my brush quite a bit. This is kind of getting dry now. So and this is coming out really dark, which I like because you want that center of that sunflower to be kind of dark. And there's a thing called value in art. And this is one of the main things I teach my students. And value in art doesn't mean how much it's worth. It means how light or how dark it is. So you want to have a value range from light to dark in your artwork. So, you know, we want to have some good darks that kind of ground our composition here. So light and dark value is a very important term in art. And we talk about value range and value scale. And that's one of the first things my Art 1 kids learn about. And that's when we get into, you know, shading things and with pencil and talk about the value. I'm concentrating around the edge. I'm going to bring a little purple in a little bit more, but I want the darkest parts of the center sunflower to be on the outer edge. I want to leave a little bit of brightness in the middle. A little bit of the lighter value in the middle. I'm liking what's happening. And no two of these will ever come out the same because we're doing the drippy, the bleed method with the water. So nothing's going to come out exact. And that's what makes it beautiful. And several of you guys, I would love to see and keep up with you from, you know, if you want to send me pictures of your work, if you keep doing this, and I would love that. And stay in
Alex is done and he wanted to show you because he's going to leave.
Can you see it?
Okay.
Can you see it?
Oh, yeah. Love it.
Okay. You going to say bye?
Bye.
I love your picture. Thank you for being such a good artist.
What page am I
awesome.
in? First place.
First place. Awesome. That needs to be hung up and shown off, right? Put that one in a frame. I'm going around the edge again, keeping the darker blots out here. But you want to blend them towards the middle a little bit, but I'm going to take just a second and let's let that dry just a bit. So I want you guys to catch up with me for just a second. Is anybody doing other colors besides blue and purple? Is anybody doing crazy stuff? Adventurous? I hope so. And so while we're waiting on the centers to dry a bit, we can jump over and start doing the petals, okay? Of course, we started with yellow. And I started with a pale yellow. Remember that my little palette, I have a mustardy yellow and I have a really, really light yellow. So I started with a very, very light yellow and just started painting in these leaf shapes. And I'm not necessarily filling the shape all the way up, and I'm not necessarily staying in the line. I'm just kind of making that petal shape. Because we're going to come back in here with that mustard color and some orange and a little brown even. I'm just kind of making loose petals, very loose. And kind of go up to the edge of that purple and blue section. Remember, you can't do this wrong. There's no way to mess it up. This is your expressive sunflower. And listen, Christmas is coming up. You guys have created all this art. Go buy some cute frames and with little mats in them, like, and give everybody art for Christmas. And you can even create more. Oh, and there's one thing too that I thought about for you guys that some of you may enjoy, and I think it would be wonderful, especially with the little ones. Sometimes they have them at Walmart, but they definitely have them at Hobby Lobby and Michael's. But you can get sets of blank watercolor Christmas card or postcards. They're, greeting cards, but they're just watercolor paper, and you paint on them. You design the card. So how lovely to make and hand paint your Christmas cards for your family this year. I think that would be a lovely gift in itself, and they could frame it and use it as a decoration, in the future. I have a best friend who's an artist. She lives in Park Hills, Kentucky. And she sends me a card for every holiday, Halloween, Easter, doesn't matter. She sends me a hand-painted card that she makes, and I've saved them over the years, and I just cherish them. So I've got this guy painted in the little pale yellow. I'm going to jump down here to the bottom flower and do the same. With my pale yellow. And if it's really water, it doesn't have to be real dark or bright. You can make it lighter by just more water and less paint. So this one I'm not going to be quite as bold maybe with the yellow as I was on top. But occasionally here and there. And I may do some of the bleed thing, the bleed technique. I was letting it kind of settle up. Mainly I want to do more of that. Darker yellows and the oranges. And we'll do some little puddling with that. And we're almost halfway through with this. Like I told you, this one's pretty fast. This is one of my favorite things to paint is sunflowers. I've done a lot of sunflowers over the years in acrylic and watercolor. They're one of my favorite flowers. They're fun to paint because of all the colors and the seed pods, and it's really super fun. And it's hard to mess them up, really, because if you think about when you were little, this shape is one of the first ways, at least with me, that I learned how to make a flower, with the little petals with a circle in the middle. I don't even have my petal drawn over here, but we're going to put some color there anyway. And back and forth, while one spot dries, we'll jump over to something else. So I'm going to come back now to our background and lay in some of our leafy greens, but I'm going to do that with, the green and the brown mixed in. If you have some more of that, or if you don't, just mix you up a little of the more natural green. And so I'm going to just kind of draw petal shape with my brush. I don't know if you're seeing that or not. And I'm not going to make it perfect. I'm just going to kind of leave it like that and maybe do a little more of that dark green down in here. Now this time I'm going to wet my brush a little bit, and I'm going to just fade out a little of that green and paint it in between those two little petals. Do a couple of those little, as if those are points of leaves, showing up in that background. And if it's too exact, which I feel like mine kind of is, just take some water and, fade it out a little. Wiggle your brush. Remember the wiggle technique. Because your brush strokes show up. So if you kind of do like a little wiggly thing, it kind of camouflages that and just fades it out. But happy things like this, when you accidentally get a shape that looks like a leaf. I'm going to put another little dark leafy shape over here. And I'm just playing with this, like, where are we going to put some dark green? Over here, over there. Like, it's your world. Put your dark greens where you want them. It looks kind of cool on camera, doesn't it? And we're going to do a little bit of the dark green just up here under this top left sunflower. I'm just going to do a little bit. And bring it out to the middle. And I'm not even trying to make a leaf shape. I'm just going to kind of bringing some of that color out. Now, in that background, I had a little fun with, we've got the brown there. And this is where, now that it's dry, if you want to lightly bring in something else, another color into your background, you could. Like if you want to pick up just a little of that purple, And you want it to be very watery. When I splatter by accident, but that's okay because we're gonna we're gonna end up doing that in a minute anyway. So I'm mixing a little purple. It's almost like just dirty water. I'm just patting it around here to add another little color in there. Can you see this one? Oh, wrong way. You guys have to keep me on my toes now. So that's really strong. So I'm just gonna wet and pat with my brush. Pat, pat, pat. And wiggle. Pat and wiggle. Sounds like we're doing dance moves tonight, right? We're patting and we're wiggling. Okay, again, there's no wrong way to do this. And you see what we're doing, like we'll jump to a place and work a little bit and then move somewhere else while that dries. So now we're going to go back to the center parts of the flowers again. And this time I'm going to get some black, which we don't use a lot of black in watercolor, but I'm going to get some black and we're going to bring that into the center like we have been doing and just kind of patting little dots of black. Most of the time, if you take most watercolor classes, your instructor will not want you to use black paint or white paint. With traditional watercolors, the white was always the white of the paper. So if you want something white, you just don't put paint there. If you're doing a snow scene in watercolor, you only paint the shadows. You don't paint the snow. But black can come out a little chalky looking. And so a lot of artists will create their own kind of black dark value by mixing purples and browns and greens and like mixing a bunch of different stuff together and kind of making your own black, which actually is very beautiful. It comes out kind of a rich, where you can kind of see another color in it, you know, kind of that depth to it. And I think it's much prettier than just straight up black. So I always tell my students, any kind of colored painting or drawing that we're doing, and if they have shadows, I always have them put a little purple and a little or a little blue in their black. Okay, so this got really dark. And if you're afraid it's too much, you know, come back to your purple or your blue and kind of, which I don't mind it being really dark because we're doing that range of values. But if you feel like yours is too dark, you can swirl in some other color, pat it in, or you can take a paper towel and blot and see what effect that makes. So now I'm coming down here to the bottom and I'm going to do the same thing. I'll turn it around so you can see it. I feel like I ramble when I do this. I'm sorry, you guys. When I'm nervous, I tend to talk way too much. And I'm not even showing my face. Sorry. Okay. So sometimes I get nervous. I guess where you guys can't talk back to me. Okay, so I'm going around the edge with black and a lot of water. We want to do that puddly thing that we love so much. And oh, mine bled up into the yellow, but you know what? It's okay. Now, if I want to fix that, I can just pat it with a paper towel. So for instructional purposes, I will, but most of the time I would just let that go and just kind of make it be part of the design work. See if I'm just blotting, just patting, and it'll bring most of that out. It won't bring it all. You'll get a little bit of most of it. Bring that black around that outer edge. And this is something too, like you could work on it for a day and put it up and come back later and be like, you know, pull it back out. And I don't know if you could even really overwork this. You can put lots of layers in here. Sometimes you can overwork a watercolor, and when that happens, like if you don't take a minute and let things kind of dry between layers, sometimes the paper might peel a little bit, or you know how your sweater gets little fuzzies on them. Sometimes your paper will do that. And if that happens, leave it alone, let it dry, because it means you're just kind of working too much on it in one spot. So while our centers are drying, now we go back to our petals. And I'm going to start with my mustardy yellow. If you don't have a mustardy yellow, you can take the yellow and mix a little brown in it, or a little orange, or all the above. I'm going to come in with my mustardy yellow. It's kind of, I love that color. I've always loved that color. And so we're just painting, you know, in our petal, some little streaks. Using a pointy brush. If you go out of the lines, that's okay. It's kind of good if you do, really. So I'm painting this mustardy color, and I'm not really filling in the whole leaf. You don't want to cover up all your light yellow. You just want to add a little dark streak or two in there. See? Just a little. Don't cover up your whole petal necessarily. And you got to think where one petal might overlap another one, it would make a little bit of a shadow. So that would be a good place to put your darker yellow or some brown. Did you see that? Like, I didn't even have to reload paint because my brush was kind of dirty. I just got a little water on it. It sounds funny for me to tell you to paint with dirty water, but sometimes it's exactly what you need. Now I got a little brown on the brush that time, and you know what? I don't mind it. It's getting a little more dimension to it. So we're kind of drawing with our brush at this point. A little bit. We're kind of drawing those streaks. We're coming down to our other flower and do the same kind of thing. I'm just kind of going back and forth between one sunflower to the other. And that one I had a little purple got on my brush, so I want to clean that up. We don't want to spread that all around in the yellow. The one thing about the complementary colors I was talking about, like they'd be beautiful together. You don't ever want to mix them, because if you mix them, it makes a really yucky color. They look better beside each other, but not mixed. If you're painting your house, or it's fun to check out the science of color and the psychology of color and stuff, and think about, you know, certain colors are supposed to make you rest better, and some colors are supposed to make you hungry. Like red's supposed to make you hungry, and oranges and colors like that. So a lot of restaurants have those colors inside. School buses have a lot of light blue in there because that's supposed to make you calm. So if you learn about those things and you're trying to choose a color for your bedroom, think of colors that would make you calm and restful. Uh-oh. Got some smearing going on here. Begin with my mustard color. We're going to get a little crazy here in just a minute. And I just keep going back over this with a different color, with a darker color. So going back up to the top sunflower. This time we're going to get some orange on our brush. And if you want to mix like a red orange, like we did before, where you do a little red and a little orange, you can do that. But I'm going to start doing a little more water, and we're kind of puddling this time. I'm patting some water on there, and then I'm going to let that orange kind of bleed a little bit. And you don't want to even stay in the lines. This time we're just adding these like splatter, like just little fields of different colors. And if you go out of the lines, it kind of makes it more artistic. So it's okay to do that. And not everyone should have a really, you know, huge amount of orange like here and there. Just be random with it. That's one of the hardest things to do, is say, you know, be random with something and make it look random. In our minds, we want everything to be orderly and symmetrical. So I'm patting the orange all the way around. And some of it, you know, you may want to even pull it out there a little bit, draw a little bit with it, draw some of your petals, draw a little orange line here and there. Like there's no wrong way to do this. I'm going to move it around and do the same thing at the bottom. Bring out some orange. Just kind of spreading that around. These are going to look very modern and expressive sunflowers. In some places, I'm just getting more water and just scooting around with the orange that we already got on there. Because I don't want every single one of them to have a big orange outline. I want to be like, you know, I was talking about the randomness. So occasionally we'll have some orange show up. And it may go, you know, into the green a little bit. And that's kind of what we want. You kind of want it to look a little messy. We got, okay, I think we're on schedule. Pretty good. We got this thing down, don't we? And if your petal shapes are getting lost right now, you can always come back in just a minute and go back into it with some brown or go back with some yellows and just kind of redraw them with your brush. But we kind of want this smeary, messy kind of effect. It's kind of what we're going for. Now this has got a lot of orange in it. Of course, when it dries, it'll be a little bit lighter. All right, so while our petals are drying, we're going back to the center again. And this time I want to get some brown and bring in there. And I absolutely think the combination of brown and blue is gorgeous. I really love it. So we're just kind of, we're not doing a lot of water this time. I'm just kind of, you know, pat in some brown around the edge and just let my brush just do this little tap tap thing. And, you know, laying that brown in there. And if you go a little brown on the edge, you know, those seed pods in the middle are not smooth. So it's okay to have some little rough edges. Patting away. And actually, while that's wet, I'm going to get a little black. I don't think it's dark enough for me yet. Like I like some of the black to stay really dark on the edges. So I'm going into, while that's wet, I'm just going to pat a little black into a brown that we just did. And then maybe take a little water and puddle up here and there. See, we're leaving that purple and blue kind of showing through. And if it gets too black, go back to your brown and bring some brown back in. But that brown and blue combo is so pretty. All right, back down to the bottom one. Do the same kind of thing down here with some brown. I like if you just pat your brush, it makes that shape almost like a sunflower seed. And just tap it around towards the center with the pointy, you know, pointier end going towards the center. And I'll bring a little more brown in here in places, here and there. Okay. And, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to turn off that yet. I'm going to come back with a little more black. Just a little bit. Okay. I'm liking this. Now, our petals are very painterly. If you want to add more to them at this time, you can. And so for an example, you might want to take a little bit of brown or maybe mix a little brown and orange or come back with your mustardy colors. See, that's kind of dark. I don't really want that dark. So I wet my brush and kind of cleaned it off, and I'm going to spread that little bit of brown here and there, but I don't want a lot of that. I want my petals to stay more orange. So just a little bit of that brown is enough. Like, you don't need a lot. I would prefer maybe to come back with more of the mustard color because, you know, our watercolor is translucent. So every layer, you know, makes it a little darker. And you really may not want to do anything more to your petals. You don't have to. I'm just defining a couple of shapes in there. Typically, there's a little layer of flowers. I'm sorry, you couldn't see what I was doing. There's a little layer usually between the seed pod and then there's like these little tiny petals. So I want to do that. I'm going to get my darker yellow and I'm just going to make a little bit of that. We're just getting some black in it and stuff, and that's okay. I'm just patting it around there like where that little bitty is on both sunflowers. Those little petals would be just adjacent them a little bit. So we need to paint while this is drying, and you can always, when that dries completely, you can come back into this sunflower now, and if you wanted to dry out the petals more with the brush and define them more, if you wanted to come into this now with a crayon or colored pencil and draw on it when it's completely dry, or an ink pen and outline. I mean, there's so many fun things you can do with just this base of watercolor, or you can just leave it as this really soft abstract watercolor. So our little bee, you're probably gonna need a tinier brush if you're not using a tiny one to begin with. So I'm gonna switch over and get a smaller one. Okay, and so we're not like, he's tiny, so we're just painting him in. So I'm gonna use my darker yellow and paint his little body. So the first little section here is yellow. And so is his tail area. And so give that just a second, because if we bring our black in, it might bleed into it right now. So give it just a second. You can even blow on it a little bit or like accentuate it, the drying time a little. So for time's sake, I'm going to go ahead. But, you know, if you don't use a whole lot of water, it's not going to bleed. And I'm going to put the black stripe at his middle. Bled a little bit, but that's okay, because this is our abstract, right? Okay. And the teensiest, remember how I taught you to barely let your brush touch the paper? That's what we got to do to make his little legs and antenna. So it's barely touch the surface with your paintbrush. Do it really fast. Same thing for a leg. We're going to do really fast and fast. I only gave him one each. I guess we need to do two, don't we? I'll do that again and again. And then his wings, I just kind of outlined them in a little black. Barely letting it touch. Like, you don't want a real thick line right there. Super little light line. We're just suggesting our little bee. And the funnest part of watercolor is we're going to splatter to finish it off. And on the example piece, I'll put it back in here. I did some green and purple and red. And I even took some like dirty water, kind of gray, and made some shapes back in here. So, I mean, like I said, when this dries, like it's really, really wet right now. So if it dries, you can come back and do more. layering on the petals, and you can do more greenery in the back. But let's do, remember when I taught you how to, that if you stick your finger out and you tap it with the brush, that's how you can control where your splatters go. So I'm going to get some green on my brush, and it's got to be kind of wet. Right, so I'm going to tap, and if it goes on the bee or the flower, that's totally okay. And we're going to kind of move it around. So I've got some little green specks, and I'm going to wash my brush out. This time I'm going to do some purple. And I'm going to bring it some down in here on the bottom. This is the funnest thing to do. Splatter paint. The fun thing about watercolor is you can splatter without fear because it washes off everything. If you're doing an acrylic painting, you probably want to have newspaper down and maybe even be outside. So we got some splatters going on. And that's pretty much it, guys. I'm excited to see what you did. You can do as much splatters as you want. I'm going to throw some red on there. I forgot to do some red. Just a little bit. Okay. So when you get a chance, I would like to see your flowers. Oh, that's amazing. Wonderful. Beautiful. Oh, that's really, really, really good. These are great, guys. Do you love them? Do you love your flowers? Yay. Super proud of you all. Yeah.
Those are beautiful.
Everyone, you should be, they're gorgeous. Yes.
The Forbears, Machina, and Chirons, and Thelias. Oh my gosh.
Love it.
And the Ford families. Oh my goodness. So you got a whole garden.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, we got a flower garden. I like that. These are great. I love it, love it, love it. Be sure, and like she was saying, send those pictures in because you guys don't know how much this makes me happy and proud of you all. And I love to be able to go back and reflect on these and look at them again and up close. And so I really do appreciate everyone that's participated. It's been super fun for me, and I hope it has.
Thank you guys so much for joining us, and I hope that we can all express how grateful we are to Miss Melissa for teaching us for the past 6 weeks. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We can have a Zoom clap.
We're a little art Zoom clap. We're a little art family now.